remain indigenous, right? One of us should probably look at the other's books for just afterwards.
Okay, why don't you say something?
Okay.
All right, guys, can you hear me? All right, yes, wonderful. Okay, we're going to get started. It's so lovely to see everyone here. Thank you for coming. Welcome. My name is Jason Oliver Chang. I'm a professor at UConn in history and Asian American studies. Just want to welcome you all to the second of our series of Asian American poets and community dialogue event. Let's see. I want to begin first by acknowledging that we here in Connecticut live on the indigenous territories of the Mohegan, the Pequot, the Schaghticoke, Pagusset, and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge that European settlers occupied this land by force and enriched themselves through the dispossession of indigenous lands and native genocide, as well as the enslavement of American Indians and Africans. It's also significant to recognize that through settlement, colonials cleared forests to build ocean-crossing ships. These vessels fueled the cycle of conquest and imperialism that shaped not only settlement in New England and the African slave trade, but also the U.S. relationship with the Pacific Islands and Asia, one that is still maintained today in our state. It's upon this inheritance of our historical relations that we seek a more socially just future for all. One of the ways that we want to work towards that future is by creating more opportunities for Asian Americans to contribute to our cultural institutions. So in January, I kicked off a campaign to bring Asian American and Pacific Islander studies to Connecticut schools. I was joined by a mighty team and co-founded the Make Us Visible CT campaign. Through the groundswell of support from across the state, we passed new legislation that, with bipartisan support, which charges the State Department of Education with making a K-8 model curriculum available in 3 years. So we're super proud of all the students and teachers and families who raised their voices for this policy. And so I just want to also, anytime I have the chance, just to say thank you for all the folks who contributed. And we know that even as challenging as it was to pass new legislation, we recognize that that was the easy part. And we're getting started now by building a curriculum for our state, and this poetry series will contribute to a homegrown Asian American studies for Connecticut students. So a big thank you to CT Humanities, Jason Mancini, and others at the Foundation and CT Historical Society, and our fiscal, who's serving as our fiscal sponsor, that was able to make this series possible. So without them, we could not have done this. And also, we're immensely grateful to Kate Schramm here at the Connecticut Historical Society for organizing and helping to make sure everything is in the right place and that we have the lights on and everything and the doors open. So leading the organizing and design of the series is Julie Choffel, adjunct professor of creative writing at UConn. She is the author of The Hello Delay with Fordham University Press and winner of the Poets Out Loud Prize. She is the former Poet Laureate of West Hartford, and she's an amazing gardener, mother of my children, and the love of my life. So thank you for bringing this vision into being. And I'm going to invite Julie up. She's going to introduce Debbie for the reading. All right, thanks, everyone. Oh. Sorry, I forgot to come over here. Come over here. No, I just forgot to mention that I wanted to share. I have some resources that I've left on the table out front. One is Unmasking Yellow Peril, which is a zine that I co-wrote with 18 Million Rising. It's about anti-racism and confronting anti-Asian racism in particular. And then with community partners and arts organizations, we also wrote this mental health workbook that we're using at UConn, and a dozen or so other universities are using this in their freshman orientations, and I encourage you to take a copy home with you if you get the chance. All right, thanks. It's all yours.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Is the sound okay? Yeah, it's good? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for being here. We're really excited that Debbie is here to read today, and that you all are here to take part in the community dialogues as well. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that Debbie has a few books up here for sale, so afterwards, if you're interested in purchasing one of her books, you'll be able to talk to you directly probably about that, and yeah, okay. So you can see her about that after the reading if you'd like. All right, so Deborah Kuan is the author of 2 poetry collections, Crossing and Lunch Portraits. She has been awarded a U.S. Fulbright Creative Writing Fellowship in Taiwan, a Breadloaf Writers Conference Work Study Scholarship, and residencies at Yaddo, MacDowell, and the Santa Fe Art Institute. Her work has appeared in Poetry, The New Republic, the Boston Review, the Baffler, Fence, the Iowa Review, Ziziva, and other publications, and her art criticism has appeared in Art Forum, Art in America, Modern Painters, and other magazines. A former fellow at the CUNY Writers Institute in Fiction and Nonfiction Writing, she received an MFA in Poetry from the Iowa Writers Workshop and a BA in English Literature from Princeton. She has taught at several colleges and currently serves as the Poet Laureate of Wallingford, Connecticut, where she lives with her husband and children. Poet and editor Jonathan Galassi has described Deborah's work as a descriptive power, clear-seeing, vivid, various material. Her poems have everything. And everything is a word that's been used more than once to describe Deborah's poetry. Reading it, we find ourselves enveloped in the physical manifestations of the real world. Architectures made of ferns, teeth, money, stalkers, cemeteries, and silverware, but equally in the otherworldly, of ghosts, of omnipotence, a genie, or a merman's cough. We are reminded by her poems that the realm of daily life resides also within the realm of speculation, where we must look twice, or, if we're lucky, endlessly, closer and closer at the structures that we build and occupy. In Deborah's poem, Pastoral, she says this more perfectly in her own words when she writes, "We wonder at the flatness of travel and how, beneath us, against us, another thing fattens." Please join me in welcoming Deborah Kuan.
Hello, everyone. Oh, let me put this over here so it doesn't block the camera. Down here. A little sloped, so I'm a little worried about it. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, Jason, for this historic work that you're doing, bringing Asian American Pacific Islander Studies to K through 12 public curriculum. It's so incredibly wonderful to be part of this reading series and to be part of this campaign. Thank you so much to everyone who's come out today. I haven't done an in-person reading in what feels like a decade. So it's so lovely to see faces that are not mediated by a screen. And thank you so much for taking the time to come out today. So I'm going to read today from my third book. It's currently unpublished. It's called Women on the Moon, and it deals with themes of motherhood, misogyny, and race. This first poem is called Magic Lesson. This is my face, a spinning plate. I'm unraveling as a mother does, a knot from a bow to astonish you. In time, you'll master the fact that every woman has been sawed in half at least a dozen times before sunset. Some of us walk through that wall. Some of us burrow beneath it. The rest spend their lives as bespoke assistants, younger siblings, bottom drawers unsticking, and then a lifetime ignites. For you, I'll wish for something else. I want you to be a student of impossible binds, a magician of a bloom from a fist, a dove from a dove from a dove. How's it sound? Should it be closer or good? It's good? Okay. This poem's called How to Raise Children at the End of the World. First of all, buy time. Hoard beans. Bury your head in a heap of raw sugar if you need. At the very least, don't ever catch yourself using the phrase, end of the world. Please. Phrases are luxuries. They are soap operas for the unbusy parent. So are sea levels, disinformation algorithms. Do not allow your imagination to tumble down that sinkhole of midnight mirrors. Your consciousness must get on with things. Who, what, where. It must edit, redact, hunt through your purse for the crucial white yarn Elsa braid to clip to your toddler's ponytail before she detonates. Color, connect for, try to extract the slippery funny bone with trembling, trembling fingers. Though when you place their sopping mittens on the radiator to dry, permit yourself to pause at the makeshift shrine, at the agony of its goodness. And when they stun you with surly ingratitude, blame the lead, arsenic, and mercury that seeped into their organic baby food. Why not? But most importantly, keep vigil as a dirigible of wildfire smoke from the other coast blithely floats past your car. How could you ever spare them what awaits? Recall that 20 years ago, when you flew out to LA to rescue your cousin from the grip of a gang, all you did was perch yourself, useless, on the foot of his bed, while he played a video game, back turned to you the entire time. You were 23, he was 17, and the broad, burnt landscape of his neck and back was tattooed with dead boys' names, phoenixes, voluptuous anime warriors, and the Chinese characters for courage and dragon. He did not call you Jie, older sister, anymore. You are lucky he did not call you worse. Bon courage indeed, and let that dress rehearsal be a lesson to you. Who did you think you were? What was your love going to do? Where had you been? You were too late by a heap of raw years. You would not save him. The end of the world had already come and gone. This poem's called The Night After You Lose Your Job. You know sleep will dart beyond your grasp, its edges crude and merciless. You will clutch at straws, wandering the cold, peopled rooms of the internet, desperate for any fix. A vapor of faith, an amply paid gig, perhaps, for simply having an earnest heart, or keeping alive the children you successfully bore. Where, you'd like to know, on your resume do you get to insert their names? The diaper rash you lovingly cured with coconut oil, or the white lies you mustered about the older man in the cream-colored truck that glorious spring day, who hung his head out the window and shouted, "Coronavirus," while you were chalking unicorns and seahorses in the drive? Where do you get to say you clawed through their night terrors, held them through their sweaty grunting and writhing, half certain a demon had possessed them, and still appeared lucid for a 9 a.m. meeting, washed, combed, and collared, speaking the language of offices? At last, what catches your eye is posted, large font and purple, a local mother in search of baby clothes for another mother in need. Immediately, your body is charged, athletic with purpose, gathering diapers, clothes, sleep sacks, packing them tightly in bags. You tie the bags with a ribbon and set them on the porch for tomorrow. Then you stand at the door, chest still thumping wildly, as if you have just won the lottery. And so you did, didn't you? You arrived here at this night, in one piece, from a lifetime of luck and error, with something necessary to give. So this poem is called Chess Lessons for Late Learners. It's a poem in series, and I feel like we're all sort of breathing a little bit easier now that the Trump era is over, but I wrote this during the Trump era, thinking about how race relations in the US have clearly historically been mostly a binary one, right, of black and white. And I was looking at chess and the black and white pieces as sort of a metaphor and a lens through which to see everything that was happening in Trump's America. So this is called Chess Lessons for Late Learners. 1. Naturally, the queen is only ever black or white, but oddly also omnipotent in a manner of speaking. She has no hair, she rushes down one marble corridor, she slices across a moor. She bears no children. She is a 360-degree birdhouse, no winged thing dares enter. 2. The off-white queen, if you will, is cross-eyed, jolie-led, her skin a polished vase, her miniature mouth a fetish. Oh, she is a cunning fiction, a delightfully managed brand. She can macerate a mountain of modest beans into the milkiest paint. Her sex is a goblet of black sesame lava, her intellect fresh chiseled snow. She has been known to splay her breastless unworn bra upon the foot of the bed with just a gingerly swing of her toe. 3. The white king is mad as man. He has no peer. He prefers slow strolls past extinguished matches, the opposite of urgency. He extinguishes. Telling a woman you've already discussed a matter is like telling the ocean its tide has already come in, he is known to say. Fabulous his self-regard, he is holed up in a whitish house, television hot. Oh, he finds his amusements here and there. He goes to sleep late and wakes up hangry, crowns grapefruit with gold plate watches. And from time to time, since the queen doesn't care, he misplaces the children of smaller men simply because he can. 4. The black king, oh, the black king, he shall have no vengeance. I'm going to read a couple of poems from a middle section of the book, which is based on the Chinese moon goddess Chang'e. And legend has it that she lives on the moon with a little white rabbit that tends to her. Moon goddess on not romanticizing legendary archers. For instance, red-toed athletic socks after a thunderstorm. It's histrionic, isn't it, to call what happens bleeding? Or an artichoke, which in name sounds like such violence, but in fact is so supple and so palatable in body. When other such pairings, like fog and sarcophagus, tango together in the ears so moodily, you wonder if perhaps you just missed that one fable, the fog and the sarcophagus. To say a thing in English is to make it so. I'm not exotic, just double-sided embroidered into a workmanlike translation. I'm waiting for love and justice to grow cinematically interchangeable, so when the rain comes pattering again on the page, everything that has been written about me will run true. And this one's called Moon Goddess as a White Woman. I had a friend who, she's of Chinese descent, Taiwanese descent actually, and she told me a long time ago, but it always stayed with me, that when she looked in the mirror, she always sort of expected to see a white woman, because that's sort of what you internalize when you grow up as a minority and you rarely see yourself reflected back to you. So I thought that was just really surprising, that even when she looked in the mirror, that's what she was waiting to see. And there's always that little fraction of a second where she was surprised by her own image. So this is called Moon Goddess as a White Woman. You can't choose to be anyone, so you choose to be her, the beach house slipcover with one tiny strawberry stain. Is it a drop of blood or a kiss smeared? It doesn't matter. Say doesn't, enunciated. Tip the dreadlocked blonde barista extremely. Take pains to drop your chin into your chest as if your head were hung by a string. Cat-cow, like you mean blessed business. Open the heart. You do. You're the cat, you're the cow, you're the only goddess who looks in the mirror and expects to see a white woman. You small talk like a lizard in athleisure. The leather keychain on which you sport your life is personalized with burns. You scrape your teeth on clean lines, teak, hygge, the fattest soy wax candles you can find. So you can't wear spring colors without a pink undertone. You can still be pastel curious in scrubs as a last-minute Halloween costume. When you speak of our brutal history, you say we. You say us. You overstuff with tissue paper. You don't mind hydrangea. Things that terrify you, phone banking without a script, brain-eating amoeba, lighting a match, pawns. You work from home, change your life, zero waste, life coach, sage. Hold everyone's cold hands at the holiday table and pray as if you know how. And this last one in the Moon Goddess series is called Moon Goddess in Transition. Transition referring to the transition in labor, but playing on the phases of the moon. Moon Goddess in Transition. In the dollhouse of adolescence, all my periods were epic centipedes writhing on miniature throw rugs. Pain, the men sighed, having never experienced such rooms of pain. You'll make it, they declared, as I fixed my stare on a taxicab halfway down the balsam corridor, as I fixed my starry relief on one decorative wreath of hundreds in the splitting seam of the hospital wallpaper. That is me, I thought, looking down on me, inside the red rose shag rug of me. Crack a lamp over my skull, skewer me, God, if you will. I'm bringing a child into view. That sort of captures the experience of giving birth without an epidural, I think. Okay. And then I'll just read two more. This one's called One Day in America. And I wrote this after the shootings in Colorado. One day in America. The fog and the rain this morning are worrying a hole into my heart. I don't say when I return from the grocery store how again, by some ordinary miracle, I made it. How I considered the pops of heat, the rapid fire pounding my eardrums, imagined my crouch, a mound of crawling flesh quivering behind the tuber bin, yams rolling past the wheels of my cart. I don't talk about the table of apple rhubarb pies I considered overturning if it came to that. How ready I always am to drop to the ground, heavy as a frostbitten door. When will it come to that? One day in America, you will ask me. One day when I drop you off at school and smell your matted, biscuit-scented hair, always aware this might be that day, you will ask me. But today is not that day. Today you are safe at home and your father has just fed you. And when you catch sight of me, you practice your wave, opening and shutting your fist in the damp air. Your nose and chin and eyes are splattered with dark red berry puree as you kick your feet in your high chair. And of course, I won't say it aloud. I would never say it aloud. What first impression it made as it tore my breath from my throat. So I'll end on a longish prose poem called Blood of the Rainbow. Blood of the Rainbow. My grandmother's name, Hong, is the Chinese word for rainbow, which sounds the same as the Chinese word for red, Hong. As her blindness began, I threaded her needles. I read for her the expressions of foreign faces. I held her hand as she stepped off the escalator. Summers, I bathed her once bound feet in a plastic basin, their skin the color of a bruise, her arches crooked and maimed. Once coming down an escalator at the mall, my grandmother tripped halfway down and fell, knocking me down with her. She landed on me. My body broke her fall. In the flurry of commotion and concern afterward, everyone had rushed to her, somehow forgotten about me. Since I was a child, I did not understand frailty and age. I assumed no one fussed over me because I was fine. If I felt pain, I assumed I didn't. I made many assumptions, as children do, filling in the brittle spaces where love is not said aloud. Another childhood assumption, that Hong and Hong were homonyms, were alike because red subsumes all the shades of the rainbow, the way pain subsumes all the motions of a body. When my grandmother was a young communist activist in her rural village in China, she was captured by the Kuomintang and thrown into jail. There she was tortured on a stretching rack. I don't know what other atrocities she suffered. She never spoke of that time in her life, but whenever she stretched before doing her morning Tai Chi, she liked to impress me with how flexible she was. She would place her palms flat against the ground with ease when she bent over, and she'd challenge me. Can you do that? After years of excruciating pain, no pain. I was wrong about home, of course. It's not red, but white that holds all the other shades of the rainbow. If you consider that in Chinese symbology, red is the color of luck and white is the color of death, it makes a kind of sense. It makes sense that death in its totality would absorb every aspect of life, every hue, every stripe, and that luck would be a frill, fickle and mercurial, a ruddy burst of joy, utterly beyond control. My grandmother belonged to the last generation of Chinese girls who were subjected to the practice of foot binding. Her feet were bound for a few years, and then they were freed as the culture and its ideals of femininity began to shift. As a result, her feet never achieved the tininess of Pepper's, which was long considered the ideal because feet that small forced a woman to walk in a gingerly precarious wobble. The years in which her feet were bound, however, did result in repeatedly broken bones, which forced her arches to jut upward at a sharp angle. Size-wise, her feet eventually did reach a somewhat normal length, an American women's size 5, but shoes, unsurprisingly, remained a lifelong source of frustration and discomfort for her. No shoe ever fit her correctly, and no step she took was ever solid. Does one consider her lucky because of what she was spared, or unlucky because of what she was not? I have an image in my mind of one pair of my grandmother's shoes. They were white orthopedic shoes with simple laces and perforated toes. I remember the way we tried to help her feet into their awkward hold, like a tuber stuffed in a strange sleeve, both peculiar and undead. The irony of the shoes was that they were manufactured to help someone with foot problems, but who else in America had feet like hers? Tying the laces of these shoes, I would always be reminded of the hard, unyielding foot of a mannequin, arched for high heels, an idealized woman behind a window resembling the living. We buried her here among strangers and couples and patriotic flags rustling in the wind, in a place where she did not speak the language, where no one she knew or loved had a headstone. The home of her name chiseled in wrong by someone tracing a character they could not read. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That was just amazing. Everyone will have a little 10-minute break now, and then we will reconvene for whoever would like to stay for the community dialogue. I think, let's see, Kate, are we going to meet in here or out in that space? Here. Okay, so we'll just move some chairs around into circles, basically, when we know, how many people we've got. So, thanks so much, you guys, and we'll see you again in a minute, I hope.